Welcome to Relationship Real Talk, hosted by MyNFT.
Well, welcome to another episode of Relationship Real Talk with my relationship experts, hosted by my NFT. For this episode, episode 7, we have another great episode for you all with Dr. Rob and Dr. Lynn sharing their insights in marriage and pre-marriage counseling for singles and couples. Today's episode, we're going to be focused more on repairing before resentment and healing before building on the singles portion. Um, to start off, to kick off with the singles portion, similar to how our well, I guess technically our substack episodes start couples and then singles, but for these episodes, we like to touch on the singles portion before leading to the couples point of view. So I'd love to kick things off with the theme of you don't attract what you want, you actually repeat what you know. From a singles portion, what does that mean to you all? What does that mean to the things that you've seen in the past, and in terms of essentially attracting what you currently are, and or people that are get caught in the same patterns of relationships? It's typically starting from something that obviously is repeating. That could be internally, that could be, trauma. Um, in your experience, where is that most prevalent?
I'll start it off. I think it goes to familiarity. So
Yeah.
basically, I mean, what you're familiar with and what you might have been familiar with in a previous relationship that clearly was not a good relationship. But then you start a new relationship with someone else, but it's still something that is still familiar. Instead of you doing that, you should make sure that you are, what's the word? Make sure that you are not going down that path of that familiar, making sure that things are good, better. I mean,
Yeah,
how
exactly.
else would you explain that?
Yeah. See, the heart attaches to feelings, not
It does.
experiences.
Yeah.
And so whenever you meet someone who reminds you at the feeling level of someone that you enjoyed before during a period of time that you enjoyed,
Yeah.
you may gravitate towards that feeling.
Yeah.
Even if the experience turned bad and sour, your heart still remembers that feeling and wants to get it back. And so we tend to ignore the red flags,
Yeah.
pursuing the feeling that we once had.
Ooh, that's good.
And that's interesting though, because most people, if they're starting to sense that cycle of repeat, or similar relationships, but the feeling, like, they get almost like obsessed, or they're used to that feeling, and
Yep.
so even though it's repeating, there's I hear this all the time actually in my small town area. People always say, "There's no one here for me," or "This is the only options that I have," and they
Yeah.
find themselves always getting in similar relationships. But we all know that's not true. I mean, yes, there might be more of a certain type of personalities and different demographic areas that you are in the world. But yeah, I always find that hard to believe that you're almost limiting yourself, or there's probably more to that to unpack than everyone is the same, right? That lives in your
Yeah.
area. So yeah, I just thought, like, from a single portion, but to more of the counseling lens, what are the steps you would be taking with somebody to help unpack what is really behind those layers, um, of those similar patterns that keep happening in your relationships?
So it's true that whenever you're dating,
Mhm.
especially in a small town or even a big city,
Yeah.
Right.
there is one common denominator between every relationship that you've been in,
Yes.
and that's yourself.
That is yourself. That
Yep.
is you. Yeah.
And so if you say that, well, I keep getting into the same kind of relationships,
Mhm.
then it's time to really take a look at yourself to see what you're pursuing, what you're after, what are your markers,
Yep.
what are your goals? I mean, not just, yeah, I've heard this before. I just want someone to love me for me.
Hmm.
That sounds great, but what does it mean?
What? Yeah.
Um, do you even know who you are?
Ooh, that's good.
I want someone to love me for me, but I really haven't defined who I am yet.
Yeah.
That
Hmm.
is difficult to work with. And so we do go through a process of helping someone establish who they are internally so they have that confidence, they have that foundation.
Yeah.
So whenever they do get into a relationship, they don't morph into what they think the other person wants.
That part.
Mm.
Because then when you morph into what do you think that the other person want, basically what we talked about that, that's the representative and stuff. You gotta bring forth your authentic self.
You can lose yourself,
Yeah.
then get deep enough into a relationship that you realize I'm not who I thought I was, and I don't recognize myself
Yep.
anymore.
Mm.
And then things just go downhill from there.
And we've seen that ever so often. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I'm getting out of that is almost this next topic. The question is why people repeat relationship patterns,
Mm.
and to your point, it starts with that one common denominator, you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if you're not willing to start to unpack that, whatever that looks like, because I think part of the issue is most people are stubborn. They think it's not their problem. It's actually the other person's issue.
Mhm.
And they keep running into the same. So it's like if you're not willing to take that take the time to know your patterns, who you are and why you're attracting those, then likelihood is you're probably gonna keep running into the same issue.
Oh,
Yeah,
Um
yeah.
and that
and
Yeah.
is
yeah.
so freeing because as yourself and us as counselors, we can't do anything about the people that you come in contact with.
Yeah.
Mm,
But you have full control over who
You
you
are.
are and
Yeah.
how you present yourself and what
Yeah.
you're looking for.
Yeah.
So if the focus then becomes, well, let me work on me to be the right version of myself for the right person,
That is so good.
then wow, all of a sudden you have control over your love life again,
Yes.
as opposed to just, love life roulette and hoping
Ooh.
hoping that that the marble
lovely,
falls on the
like,
right
Okay, that need to be on a
number.
T-shirt.
yeah,
Right.
right. It's like before and after counseling.
Yes.
The before love life or roulette, right? Isn't is before, then after stability,
Exactly.
longevity. Um, yeah, that might be like this was me before counseling. This was me after counseling.
Exactly. Exactly. That is
Oh man.
good.
So
Indeed.
so to touch on that a bit more, most people say do have a preference. So what would you say? This is maybe a little more challenging question, but what if someone has a preference, right? And obviously that preference obviously seems to always lead to like you hear this like some girls say, "Hey, I don't know what it is, but I like bad boys," right? Like why?
Mhm.
Or like growing up, it was always like, "Oh yeah, you didn't want to be Mr. Nice Guy because all the fable was girls don't like nice guys, right?"
Mhm.
So like in terms of that, maybe just to unpack that one, what is actually happening when you hear someone say that? Or I'm sure you've probably ran into it in maybe a single email counseling before. Um, what what would you tell someone that came to you and said, "I just keep attracting bad boys," or "I keep attracting the wrong kind"? I know, yes, going back to yourself, but what could be going there? Why do you think that is?
So, we might actually have different opinions about this,
Mhm.
with the whole preference thing. Now, let me explain what I mean by that. So, a lot of people with that whole preference thing, okay, I want them tall, I want them short, I want them skinny, I want them this, I want them that. Honestly, at the end of the day, you need to make sure that you are with someone that you all are together and you're able to be together for the overall purpose and overall um um what's the word I'm looking for?
Alignment.
The alignment, yes, of course.
Okay.
And so, like, say for instance, you're it's like, okay, yeah, I want this guy, and my preference is I'm looking for somebody that's 6 foot and he has to be muscular and all these other different things. Again, you're looking at all these outward things about this
Mm,
person. But have you thought about the person's mind, the person's heart, how they're gonna treat you, and all the other different things, and vice versa. So for me, for that part is the preference thing to me. I throw it out the window.
mm,
Now I have thrown it out the window because for previous relationship, yeah, I want that person that had all of that, but was bad, absolutely bad, had all these outward qualities, but the inward qualities, not there
Mm.
at all. So I think that, like I said, you should look for what the person's mind and heart and again how they treat others, and not only just how they treat others, but how they're going to treat you. It's just, yeah, I think it's totally different. Again, yeah, you just need to, not saying that. So the outward things are gonna fade. They really are.
mm.
Yeah.
You know, you might look like one thing when you was younger, of course, and then once you start getting older, those things on the outward things are going to start dissipating. Not saying you don't take care of yourself and i.e., but it's the whole thing about it. You go from young, you go to old. You're not gonna look the same. But the inward stuff, that is gonna look the same.
Gravity affects everybody and everything.
And yes.
I think Dr. Rob said this and we ended up clipping it because it was such a good saying. But it was like if you're investing in someone's almost like outward appearance, you're
Yep.
investing in a depreciating asset or something like that.
Yes.
It was along
Yeah.
those lines, and I thought that was profound. And it's such a good point. And to what you're saying, Dr. Lynn, I think if I could summarize that,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe even just share out what came to my mind is that if you're still focused on outward appearances or things like that in your relationships, it may be more of a maturity scale and like where are you at in your
Uh,
relationship maturity.
Exactly.
Because if and to your point, I think, a lot of people I actually have heard this from friends that are now married, that maybe married late as well, and
Mm-hmm.
some of the things that they've shared with me was that, yeah, I just had to, like, show who I was upfront and be open
Yeah.
to things that maybe I wasn't, like, I was early in my immaturity of relationships
Yep.
and more focused on outward. But then by the time you get to that mature state, you really start to realize what are the real actual important things.
Yeah.
And you find yourself actually it's like I would have guessed I would have been with this person because I became more mature and I opened myself up. And which is quite funny because I think a lot of times people probably uh are not with the right people
Yep.
or overlook the certain people
Overlook.
just because of those quote unquote potential that they might have place in their head. And who even knows where they came from, and this to me it has a bit more of as a mentor used to call your input gates for visual, hearing, eyes, even mouth as well, like what you're saying, what you're seeing, what you're hearing. And I personally think that a lot of a lot of where these expectations come from
Yeah.
are probably from things that you're visualizing. So
Mm-hmm.
TV, movies, shows, podcasts that maybe aren't always the best representation of how to build a relationship. Toxicity is what sells. And they're like, oh, it's
you know?
okay to do that. And the next thing you know, you're comparing a fantasy to
Mm-hmm.
reality. Well, how do you go about that
And
with
well,
your, yeah.
yeah, going back to what you said about the girl who says, I'm always attracted to the bad guys,
Mm-hmm.
bad boys, right? Um, when someone has a notion like that, what we would do is we would kind of drill down on that.
Yeah.
What are you really looking for? It might
What?
look
Yeah.
like that at the surface,
Yeah.
but let's get down to what you're really looking for, what really fulfills you, and why.
Yeah.
And then you might find that, well, she's attracted to someone who brings a certain level of excitement. Well, it doesn't always have to be the bad boy that brings that. We can just kind of tweak that down to exactly more precisely what she's looking for.
You know
Right.
what? Let's use an example of that. So you said something along the line as she wants the excitement. Okay. So she wants somebody to say, for instance, when you're going on vacation and, or she wants somebody that maybe just likes to ride roller coasters, parasailing. I mean, that is a person that needs somebody else to be just as active, I feel like,
Mm,
as her. Then on the other hand, where somebody might say, okay, I need somebody that's going to be laid back. What I mean by that, somebody that is going to be able to, we can just sit together and we'll break open a book, separately, of course, and you're reading and I'm reading. And you know what I'm saying? We're in our quiet moments. It's not that we don't like to, do other things that, for each other. But I mean, some people like that, oh, just gotta have that excitement.
mm.
When they don't have that excitement, like, i.e. doing all the, those
Yep.
adventurous things, then,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think to your point, it goes back to knowing you, and then once it's more mature and you're with the right person,
Mhm.
knowing them and knowing that, hey, this is obviously things are working out, but I want to get to now that we mutually know each other. I want to know how best to work with you, how to grow with
Exactly.
you, and then having like you said those. Okay, so that is the root of it. You just like excitement. You like maybe spontaneous dates, date
Yep.
nights, and so the cure to that or solution maybe is like, all right, let's similar to what you all have done in the past. I know you've shared every year, I believe. You take just a week together and
Oh,
just
yeah.
shut off, like
Just
unplug, just
reset.
have to you reset, right?
Yeah.
That maybe something that could look like after uncovering these things is, hey, every month, let's have some spontaneous vacation where we just go to the airport and one of the, I don't know, one of those things that we just say, we look and say, hey, we'll close our eyes and we point and we just end up going there, right? Things
Exactly.
like that to fuel those needs that
Yeah.
each party, for lack of better terms, is looking for to I don't know, just feel fresh and something new if that's what they're looking for, right?
Yeah.
Um, so if we could now maybe flip more to couple's point of view
Yeah.
and the silent marriage killer, as we touched on earlier on,
Ooh.
unspoken expectations.
Mhm.
So we've touched on this a little bit, but to take it even a next level deeper, and maybe a line to start us off with is why disappointment often comes from expectations never spoken, especially in a marriage.
Yeah.
Um, I think Dr. Lynn, you talked in the past, you can't just expect that Dr. Rob wants to eat the same thing every day. He's like, this is my favorite meal. It doesn't mean I want to eat it every day, right?
Yeah.
but
That's
but
true.
walk maybe the audience through how do you number one find those expectations, communicate those expectations, and then how do you find middle ground um in growing through those expectations?
Yeah. They'll say that the biggest enemy to excellent is good. Because when things are good, when things are okay, you don't say anything.
Mhm.
And when it's adequate, when it's just even keel, you're like, okay, I had this expectation, but it's nothing's really too bad right now. So I'm not going to say anything.
Mhm.
But then over the years,
Mm.
those unmet expectations
Mhm.
become something that becomes a bit of a rift, something that leads to your marital drift.
Marital
And it's
trip.
unfair to your spouse because you never said anything.
Yeah.
So I'm not talking about complaining about every little thing that doesn't meet your expectations. I'm talking about being proactive and setting those expectations up front.
Oh, yeah. Always bring them up front. Yeah.
And for me, I'm what we call melancholy in my temperament.
Mhm.
I will tend to internally think about what my expectations are. And
Mm.
then the phlegmatic part of me will tend to make plans based on my own expectations, and I may not have even voiced them at all.
'Cause they're still inside his head and not
It's all
came out
inside
of
my
his
head.
mouth. And if they
And
don't come out of the mouth, how's the other person gonna know what his expectations are?
And she is what we call sanguine,
Yeah.
which means she's kind of a spur of the moment kind of gal.
Yes.
And so I might ask, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Hey, do we have any plans for Saturday? And she'll say, no, I don't have any plans. And so I will internally make my own plan for Saturday. And she'll get up Saturday morning and say, all right, let's go. I'm like, go where? I was planning to do X, Y, Z. I made these plans, these expectations in my own mind.
Yeah.
I didn't tell her. And she came up with something at the spur of the moment, not knowing that was infringing upon my expectations.
Exactly.
So whose fault is that?
Really?
It's kind of mine, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I gotta take a look and take ownership of, hey, Rob,
Mhm.
if you wanted to do X, Y, Z, you should have let her know.
Yeah. Communicate. That's why we say communication is key.
And so for the audience that, sorry, there's more you want to add there?
Yeah, I was just gonna say you could take that small example and carry it not just to the weekend, but to a year or a whole season of your life.
Mhm.
You know, next year we'd like to travel to whatever, or over the next 2 to 3 years, I'd like to do whatever with the garden or add this upgrade to the house. But if I never communicate that, how can she live up to those expectations?
Yeah.
And to add on to that, Dr. Lane, you talked about the importance of communication, something that I think every episode there's some portion about communication because it's that
Yes.
important in the relationship.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
to almost effective communication is key to that one matter. How do you learn to communicate without blaming?
Ooh,
Ooh.
wow. Um, wow, we just talked about this session this past week. We do talk about I
Yeah.
language.
Our language.
I feel this is what I'd like to do. It's not so much about being more narcissistic and talking about yourself all the time,
Mhm.
but it's more of a matter of not pointing your finger and laying blame all the time.
Which is the you language.
You always do this. You always do that.
Yeah.
You didn't meet my
Mhm.
expectations.
Yeah.
Um, and so we tend to focus on drawing someone in as opposed to pushing someone away. When you're pointing at them saying you did or you didn't, you're actually pushing them away and putting them on the defensive.
Yeah.
When you start to use I language, it's more inviting.
Mhm.
It's like you're opening up your heart, you're showing your vulnerability, and the person who loved you should step into that space
With you. Yeah.
with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect.
Perfect.
And I did want to touch on, you mentioned some things previously of obviously you know Dr. Lynn very well. Dr. Lynn knows you well. And you mentioned sanguine, you mentioned phlegmatic, a few other terms that maybe our audience is not necessarily aware
Mhm.
of those personality types. How did you get to know more about yourself?
Ooh. That it would be
Well,
the assessment. And go.
so there's a long answer and a short answer to that. The long answer is we went through years of clinical Christian counseling, earned master's degrees, certifications and licenses from the National Christian Counselors Association, and all that stuff to get to the point where we can really look at someone's scores
Mhm.
and understand them in a way that they'll unpack something that's going on in their marriage,
Mhm.
and we can say, well, this is why, and that's why.
Yes.
They're like, wow, how did you know that? This is our first session. I'm like, well, that assessment that you filled out.
Yes.
So the assessment, we've taken what we've learned and we've built it into a very unique marriage or relationship assessment, so we can see the two people side by side and
Yes.
see what we call their marital dynamic. Taking a look at that, because of the training that we've had, we don't expect everybody to know what all these different terms mean in all the different assessment areas. I mean, really, there's melancholy, there's phlegmatic, there's choleric, there's sanguine, there's supine, and then there's that across socialization, influence, and empathy.
Mhm.
That's a huge um, uh, body of knowledge. But when it comes to just you and your spouse, or you and your loved one, you don't need that broad set of information. You just need to focus on what applies to you. So that's
That's
what we
good.
do.
Yeah.
We help you focus in on those traits that apply to you, and we actually provide that to you in a really easy to understand report. This is why this happens.
Yeah.
And then, in fact, with every counseling session that we have, any issue that comes up, we actually provide a recap. So you have in writing influences and issues and influences.
Mm-hmm.
And what that tells you is for every issue that came up, this is how your temperament applied to contributed to it. This is how your temperament contributed to it. And this is how your temperaments together can work together to overcome that issue.
Yes.
Wow. And to your point, to get that report, where could people start at? Where I think I might have the answer here, but yeah, where can people have that first call to action,
Yeah.
to start to learn more about themselves? If it's coming in more of a single perspective,
Mm-hmm.
there's
Yeah.
that, or coming in to better a relationship or premarital. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just visit us at counseling.interpulseportal.com. That's INNERPULSE portal.com. And I'm
or-
sure with the video we can get the URL on there. So
exactly.
counseling.interpulseportal.com. And you'll actually have the opportunity there to see us counseling as a team, me counseling individually, and Dr. Lynn counseling individually. And it's super easy to just choose a time on our calendar and click, and we'll meet up with you.
Yes.
That first one is free. We're not going to charge you for an intake because you might talk to us and say something that just doesn't align with the way that we do things.
Mm-hmm.
We might say something that doesn't align with something with the way that you do things. So it's a very low friction way to say, are these the right counselors for me?
Intake
Mm.
first,
And I
and then go
imagine
into counsel.
any counselor
Mm-hmm.
should allow that sort of meet and greet,
Mm-hmm.
so you know it's the right counseling relationship to get into.
Exactly.
But that sounds like I'm not sure if I've personally really always heard that approach to counseling. The again, just to diagnose before you prescribe, but like to your point, you're also saying we're not sure if we're even going to be the right fit, like potentially in a relationship. And I think that is a unique point of view. And I think it's to me, if I'm most people in anything that they do business wise, fortunately or unfortunately, always are just trying to take in anyone and everyone, right? But
Mm,
that's not the goal. The goal is to really drive impact and change.
Mm-hmm.
And do you have, let's say, credentials for people obviously you're looking to work with, that are open, willing, to make changes. And if just as much as if they don't align with how the approach you have. If you don't like it, it's okay. So it's
yeah.
not, hey, we want you to come counsel. It's like, hey, we want you to feel comfortable,
Exactly.
to want to go through counseling. Don't do it for you. Don't do it for us. Do it for yourself.
Yeah.
Um, no, I just thought that was a very unique perspective because I think maybe some people could be shy about going that route,
Mm-hmm.
because it's like, oh, they just want to counsel. But no, it's like it's got to be something that's a mutually beneficial road at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So,
And we stress, it's that especially when we do the intake, we stress that we are Christian counselors,
Mm,
you
mhm.
know. So that there is not a perception of that we're not, because we are. That is what we have our
it's our training.
degrees. It's our training,
Mhm.
our degrees is in Christian counseling. So we're gonna bring forth the word. So if you're not wanting you're one a person that doesn't, that's not you, then we're not the right fit. So we're bringing forth God's word because that's who we are.
Yeah.
And
Period.
this is again maybe a little more challenging of a question, but
Hmm.
in your opinion, what led you all to go down the path of Christian counseling versus maybe traditionally non-Christian counseling? Like what was you're right? Because I'm sure there was a lot that went down into that decision process, but I guess maybe from your experience and perspective of counseling in general versus a more prescriptive Christian based counseling, what not to say non-Christian counseling is bad, but I would love to just get your perspective on the value in seeking, you know, Christian-based counseling, if it is,
Yes.
if it does align with your morals.
I mean, Dr. Rob just said it, very, it's our core value. That is who we
Mm,
are, period. I mean, we bring forth God's word. When we are counseling, that is what we are bringing forth. We start off with his word.
And if I can provide a little bit of a confession here.
okay.
Before we met, I was called into marriage counseling
Hmm.
and marriage ministry.
Yes.
And at the time, I thought, look, I know the Bible, I read the Bible, I keep reading the Bible more and more, and I'm getting closer to God, I'm getting closer to know his nature. What else do I need? Right? What else? Because the New Testament really is a handbook. Ephesians tells us, husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church. And so to me, that's just the entire New Testament is about how Christ loved the church now and forevermore. And so I'm like, okay, what else do I need to know? I know the Bible and I'm learning the Bible deeper. And then we met and we got married. And she said that she wants to go into formal training for being a counselor. At the time, honestly, I did not think I needed it. I thought the Bible was all that I needed. Then we started. Look, I said, I'm I'm not going to have you take those classes by yourself. So I did them too. And as I was taking those classes, I'm realizing how much
More.
deeper
Yeah.
counseling is than just what we read spiritually and
Mm,
scriptural.
Mhm.
And so that kind of she pulled me into a deeper understanding of psychology. Um, so when we look at clinical Christian counseling,
Mhm.
yes, there is evidence-based counseling, as you mentioned, what
Yes.
an LPC would have.
Yes.
That's fantastic. We use some of the same techniques, the same approaches,
Mhm.
but we also bring a spiritual component. And what I've
Yes.
come to realize and come to accept is that you, me, each one of us, there's a couple of different parts. There's two different parts to us.
Mhm.
There is the flesh, and that sometimes that flesh does need to be counseled to. It's the traumas that we've been through, the depression that we faced,
mm,
things that we have to work through in this world. But there's also a spiritual side to us.
Exactly.
And if you're only doing spiritual counseling, you miss out on the flesh part of you. If you're only doing secular counseling, you miss
It's
out on
now
the
the
spiritual
spiritual
side of
side
you.
of you. Yeah.
The real healing comes when you look at yourself
All of it.
holistically.
Yep. The
mm.
whole package. Exactly.
When you're
Wow.
able to surrender to what he's bringing, what he's telling you, and recognize what he's telling you relative to your flesh, relative to who you are as a person,
Yeah.
you know, that brings you to an accelerated process of healing.
Wow.
Yeah.
So the way I'm absorbing that is, again, like you said the word that I was gonna actually describe with the holistic aspect.
Mhm.
That there's so much more behind a strong, growing, flourishing relationship, and like you
Yes.
said, flash. Almost going back to how we started this conversation about maturing past just outward appearances in the relationship,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
now understanding the spiritual aspects and connecting that to the alignment your future partner or current partner can grow into. It's beyond the flesh. And I think personally, when I think about that, I think that is a way to build a more, um, I'd say, fulfilling and worthwhile growing relationship. So yeah, no, I was that's not on the agenda of conversations to talk on today. That was just something that we haven't actually talked about. Why did you go down that path, and what are the differences that someone can expect going down a Christian based counseling route versus a non Christian? And again, that alignment is key to your values,
Yes.
and you would I guess imagine that as you're coming into that, ideally you have the similar values, or you're looking to bring that out of yourself more through
Yeah.
something more structured and centered in faith. Um, so that being said, if any of this resonated with you, or our audience, the last thing we like to do is give them at least one line to think about. Um, you all can decide whether you want to respond on it or not, or just leave it for the audience to really think about. And this could prompt a conversation to reach out to the site that we will share at the end of this as well. But
Mhm.
the live engagement question that we have for our audience is, what expectation did you have about love that reality changed?
Oh,
Again, what expectation did you have about love that reality changed? So
that's good.
that, yeah, another one. We always have some good, questions to really keep you thinking by the end of these episodes. With that being said, if again, if any of these related with you, this is another amazing episode. Thank you, Dr. Rob. Thank you, Dr. Lynn of My Relationship Experts, for always taking some time to just share the insights. I know our audience out there on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram are commenting, sharing perspectives, and I think a lot of them are counselors that you have today. I mean, counselees that you have today. I love seeing messages like, "Hey, those are my some of my counselors," on Facebook and things like that. But if you would like to join and even just take that first step to understanding, is this the right fit, or is there mutual beneficial route in working with Dr. Rob and Dr. Lynn? As Dr. Rob mentioned, the best place to go is counseling.interpulse, so INNERPULSE portal.com, and choose your path: single, premarital, group, with Dr. Rob. If you're a female, would feel more personally just working with Dr. Lynn, you have the opportunity to do that as well. Or if
Mhm.
you want to join as more of a couple, then guess what? You start with both of them in relationship counseling. So you have multiple paths to start there, and it's just the first point contact to understand the next best step through the portal and the process with My Relationship Expert. Once again, thank you, Dr. Rob. Thank you, Dr. Lev. Thank you, audience, for tuning in. And we'll
Yeah.
see you next time for episode 8.
See you next time.
Next time.
Cheers, everybody.